What has Excelsior's domain been picking up from eBay? Let's have a look. Nope, this is not an Adidas Originals unboxing video. It is in fact a Zoids unboxing video, sort of. I shall expand. I have had this little box lying around in this room for months, and what I was intending to do with it has been pushed to the bottom of my to-do list for who knows how long. At the time of recording, I'm still in the UK. At the time of you watching this, I will hopefully be in New York. So, quite why I picked this one, I don't know. I'm probably partially inspired by the chat that Ed had with Red Scavenger on his last Vaults of Icon Collector's Corner sort of edition. And I thought it is way past time that I had a look at what I actually picked up from this eBay auction. And quite frankly, I have no idea what is in this box. I remember it's Zoids, I remember it being several Zoids. I'm not sure which Zoids, however. So, we shall explore together. I've even got my Zoids annual at the back there, to act at both as backdrop and as reminder in case I can't remember what guys are called as they come out. Because I'm not familiar with every single Zoid going, funnily enough. Came very well packed. However, we do have a lot of pieces, which is fair enough because Zoids are horribly breaky. You know, if you try and transport them like this is by far and away probably the safest way to do it. Now, I could be horribly wrong, but yeah, that's Red Horn. I thought I'd got Red Horn in this. The reason I say it's Red Horn confidently is because this weapon here, which you might be able to just make out, is his sort of main back gun. And I'd recognise that because I did have a Red Horn the Terrible for a brief time. He was the leader of the mutant Red Zoids. This is definitely bits and pieces of him. Those look like his feet. I don't know if I'll actually try and make him. But I think they've been packaged accordingly. This is his main body here. Now, I'm not sure I'll be able to rapidly put him together for you, to be honest. That's probably optimistic. I don't know if I've got instructions in here, and if I haven't, I'm going to have to source them in order to be able to recreate him properly. I think I know someone who might have given me his instructions actually, or might have a source for them, so I might need to hit them up for him. But that's definitely going to be a Red Horn again at some point. Now, these look pretty complete. I think it looks to me like I've got the accessories there for him, and it looks like he's actually been partitioned off. He's got all the sort of the caps there for him as well. So that's good to have. Quite distinctive caps for Red Horn as well. They've got these two little slits on them, so they stand out from other Zoids caps quite sort of obviously. There may not be quite as much in here as I imagined actually. So I've got some more smaller Zoids in here, I believe. So let's have a quick look at these. These ones I might have. Ah, yes, excellent. These ones I might have more chance of quickly putting together, I think. But as I say, I'd be hesitant to go for Red Horn in totality without having instructions for him, because he's probably going to be a little bit more complicated than average, I suspect. So let's have a look here. Now, this is one I've wanted to have back for ages. This is a Spiderzoid. And if you're unfamiliar, the Spiderzoid was one of the first Zoids, if not the first Zoid, captured by the humans when they arrived on Zoidstar in the comics from Marvel back in the day. And as a result, it was very much kind of, you know, the hero vehicle for the poor humans who otherwise wouldn't have stood a chance. And I love this little guy. What I used to do with him was I'd take his cockpit off the front there, and then I'd attach something else to these side spokes and then fly it around as a little spaceship. That was kind of what I did with him a lot of the time, and he was cool. They were great little things, so they were so small you could easily fit them in your pocket and no one would know the difference. But as you can see, they've got these huge wind-up, sort of spokes coming out of their engine blocks. Now, all being well, and I nearly bid for one of these the other day, and something in my head was nagging me saying, you don't need one, you've got one, you just haven't opened the blinking box yet. And I was quite right. So, he is very complete. You notice the things like this end cap piece, it's not actually strictly necessary. It would probably hold together, because if this little laser blaster on top is there, it'll clamp the rest of the parts together. So you don't necessarily need it, but it's nice that it's there. I would probably imagine that as being an aft firing weapon of some sort, because otherwise he could get blindsided. They don't have great rear vision, Zoids. They don't seem to have wing mirrors, so it's a bit unfortunate if something creeps up behind you and your scanner isn't working for whatever reason. You're probably going to get clobbered. Knowing me, I might have gone for this auction in particular because the Spiderzoid was in it, which seems odd given that Red Horn's in there as well. But Red Horn was probably an added bonus, especially if it actually works, of course. I don't actually know. I'm trying to. Oh, he does have yeah, good. There's no. Well, if there is a battery in there, it's not working. But if there isn't a battery in there, I'm quite happy about that as a concept, because it's a bad thing to have a battery in there for that long. Did I mention that I broke the Red Horn that I got when I was little? Because I did. I was not impressed with myself for doing it either. I literally sat on it, or sat on him, whilst I was on holiday, like 5 seconds after I'd got him. My parents weren't very impressed with me either, because I don't think he was a particularly cheap Zoid at the time, relatively speaking. He's oddly not that huge. You would think that being the leader of the Red Zoids, he would be particularly large, but he really isn't. So that's a slightly sort of curious thing. I probably should have been doing this live, really, but obviously, excellent. I have a pilot for him as well. Excellent. So the little tiny pilots. And it was argued recently that this could be the smallest toy in someone's collection, and I argued that you'd actually need a cockpit and something else for it to be an out-and-out toy, because they don't have any articulation at all. This is very cool. These are the little sort of stoppers for the smaller blue Zoids. These are fairly standard. Those you could probably swap out between most Zoids of the blue flavour. Certainly the earlier ones. The later ones got more bespoke as time went on, I guess you could say. Their cockpits evolved, but most of the early cockpits are exactly the same. So you could just swap them around if you needed to. Let's just slot these legs in. So I mean, the stoppers were very sort of, they were used for everything basically. So they held all these little parts on, and then all the sort of the major pieces they held together as well. So it's very clever. There's no glue. It's you just literally just slot things in like this, and that's it. And then you just stopper them off, and then they'll hopefully stay put. And I suspect this one's probably going to work. And this is the thing. This is what I like so much about Zoid, is that yeah, they're great. They're great just to look at, because I always just love the designs. Full stop. Obviously, there's absolutely no reason why they should look anything vaguely similar to Earth creatures, because they were supposed to come from a completely different planet. But it is what it is, isn't it? So suspension of disbelief and all that. But the idea that you could then, having gone to the effort of building them, to have them actually powered as well was genius, I thought, because otherwise they are just plastic kit models basically. But if you can engineer it in such a way that you can actually just use them as wind-up toys like that, and there we go. So that is the Spiderzoid. And that just takes me slap bang straight back to my childhood. And it's just such a simple idea, but you know, it's unmistakably a spider. Got little mandibles on the front. This is sort of primary weapons there. It's just very, very cleverly done. Very, very cleverly done. Very, very simple, but very, very cleverly done. And for me, because I was reading the Zoids comics as well at the time, of course, it has that added depth because, you know, for me, this is another character effectively, to my mind, you know, because they're so reliant on it and they have to look after him. Now, am I going to wind this up in the right direction? Is it going to have power? A little bit. Let me be a little bit more adventurous with it. Oh, I have a spare. So you can see that in its prime, that would have moved forward. He's actually lost one of his stoppers there, so let me just pop that back in. I will just try that again, just to see if I can actually get him to move forward in a slightly more convincing fashion. Of course, the thing with these wind-up engines is you never know when you buy one whether or not they're going to be, you know, fully operational or a bit naff, basically. And by the same token, you don't really want to over crank it and break it. He's moving a fraction, isn't he? He's moving a fraction. Bless him. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, back in the day, it probably would have done a little bit more than that. But the idea is there, and the mechanics and everything else are very, very clever. Yeah, so he's really just wobbling about in the same place, isn't he? Bless him. Well, that's fair enough. He's long overdue a retirement, I think. That's very, very cool to have him. I'm glad I've got him, because that was definitely on my wish list of Zoids to pick up. And I have managed to pick up quite a few. You see them on eBay quite a lot, and I've seen them in toy fairs quite a lot. Obviously, box ones will set you back more, but they will have the distinct advantage of having instructions a lot of the time. I suspect that instructions are probably also readily findable online, given that there's a big fan base for Zoids, and they are still relatively current in Japan as well. I mean, I don't think we particularly see the lines over here anymore, but they are, they are a thing. They are a thing. Now this one I always hankered after. Now I can probably make it. Sorry, let me just pop this back in its cockpit, otherwise I'm going to lose track of it. There we go. I'll pop them in there. You can imagine how many of those got lost over time, can't you? The androids, because not the biggest items. Now this is, now does he have I'm not sure he actually has an official name other than Powerzoid. They're called Powerzoid tanks. Yeah, so he's a Powerzoid tank, this one, and these were different because these are battery powered, and they are the smallest of the Zoids that had batteries. The big Zoids came with great, like Redhorn here, came with great big stonking battery compartments in them. So they needed a lot of oomph to power them. He's also an exception to that rule I was talking about earlier. You can see here, he's actually got a very different cockpit to that standard white cockpit that I was alleging was relatively standard. In fact, he's got a blue cockpit. Now, I'd be lying if I said that I can remember where all his pieces go. And in fact, as I say, I didn't actually have him. So I'm not at all sure, but I'm guessing those, sorry, you can't see that, can you? I'm guessing that those would go on either side there, would be my guess. And then maybe his cockpit actually goes on there, or he's got a little bit of a neck piece. I mean, I could be completely making this up. So one of the interesting things about Zoids, though, the because they are sort of modular in their construction nature, you could reassemble them in slightly different ways and actually get away with it. So you know that you don't necessarily have to have them exactly as they're set out in the instruction manual. You could do them another way. I am completely guessing at this point as to he's got slightly different weapons for different sides as well, from the looks of it, which is also confusing. Yeah, so I'm just winging it basically. This could be completely wrong, and probably is. Yeah, I don't really know where that one's supposed to go, because I think I've just run out of pegs, but possibly it sort of goes, maybe he's supposed to have another one on the front there. I don't seem to have any more for him, however. Quite distinctively blue though, so if you came across one of his weapons, it looks like you probably know it, because they'd all be quite sort of distinctively blue, but maybe that was how he went. I'm not entirely convinced that I'm not missing one there, if you see what I mean. Let's have a look in this bag. I'm getting sticky fingers from this, which is a sign that perhaps the battery compartment was the worst for wear, but I do have batteries to my right, so possibly I can test it and see whether or not he's actually operational. Push, it says, really? Oh, I see, as in to push on the cover. Okay. Let's see if this actually works. I have no idea where the on switch is. Where's your on switch? It's got suspension. The axles are sprung, so that's quite cool. Let's get his. I'll get his. There must logically be an on switch somewhere. Oh, here it is. Okay, well, it's either my battery isn't working or he isn't. Let's just try another battery briefly. I can't say. It's been a while since I picked these up, so I couldn't swear that this was sold as working. Well, it's not working at the moment, but I can look into that. It's possible that it just needs a bit of a, yeah, it's a little bit wonky looking. It might just need a little bit of a clean up somewhere. It doesn't look particularly corroded. It doesn't actually look too bad, but obviously it's deeply old. Ooh, was that a? No. I mean, I'm not getting any reaction at all from that. So I do wonder whether perhaps that's had its day, or it just needs a bit of a clean up. Oh. It's alive! Okay, maybe I need to check my batteries more carefully, or it's just decided that it's not going to fight me on it. I don't know, but one of the two. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. All right. Now, weirdly, do I remember him saying? Oh yeah, you know, how weird is that? I remember him saying now. This is some sort of, it's not a 3D print, but I remember him saying he had to replace the outer tyre on this, because the tyres are quite distinctive on this. It's just got, unlike a lot of the others, well, in fact, virtually all of the Zoids I can think of, he hasn't got legs, he's got wheels. This is why the power Zoids were fast, you see. I've no idea why on a desert planet you'd use wheels like this, but let's just see if he can actually motor at all, because it'd be quite cool if he could. And I was not really expecting this one to work necessarily. Still puzzled as to why I've got this leftover gun and where it would fit. I can't see a single stud point where this would fit on. I mean, there's no point in it fitting on there at all, but I suppose it would do. This is the other problem with interchangeability. You just don't know whether or not you're really getting things correct. And I've got more. I'm not sure what those are for, because he doesn't really have that many different pieces to fit on. Okay, well anyway, let's just see if he'll actually run. Hooray! Oh, he was actually getting some speed up there. Well, there you go. Who would have thunk it? That's quite cool. His little wheels are going. See, that would have been a lot of fun when you were little. That would have been quite a lot of fun, and it would have charged into other Zoids quite happily as well. Oh, that's cool. I like the fact that that is still able to run 40 years later. That's impressive. That's impressive. Okay. This is the only other one that I've actually got bagged up in here. It wasn't as many as I thought, actually. It's not quite as terrifying as I thought. Now this... I'm thinking Hellrunner. Possibly. I'm thinking possibly Hellrunner. Now, this one is far more discombobulated. This one is far more discombobulated, but I wonder if I can pull this together. Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's definitely a Hellrunner, judging by those legs. We saw quite a lot of them in the comics. They were quite a frequent appearance. They seem to be sort of particular favourites, I think. So I'm guessing I'm going to have to feel my way through this one. So you'll have to forgive me if this is not the most efficient way of doing it. And I am guessing a lot here as well. So that's the main body chassis. So the engine's got to be able to come out through there, and that's got to be able to power the legs somehow. Can't be like that. I do actually have one made up in the next room. So I ought to be able to reverse engineer this one if I don't actually have the necessary memory for it here. Now that'll be the tail part, so that'll be the start of his tail at the back there. Oh, so maybe it's like that actually. So that's probably the right orientation. That's a foot, and that's another foot. So those are his. That's what I've gone too fast here. Actually, hang on. Those are his little claws at the front. They go onto either side of the front of the body. This is the engine bay. So you can see there's quite a distinct sort of cut-out shape in that, and that's what fits this into it. So I would think that engine is going to go in there like that. And then, oh, that's what these are. So those are for him. Those are the Hellrunners tabs, or whatever you want to call them. I've no idea what the official name is. Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is better. Okay. Now, knowing Zoids, there's probably a reason why there's a gap there, which means I probably haven't done it quite right. But let's just see if I can do this as it is. So that if that fits onto there like that. Oh, I wonder. Okay. Okay, hang on. So one of these is probably, if I were, okay. So one of these has got to be, no, that's not the tail, that's the neck. That's the neck, right, okay. All right, I'm overcomplicating it. So neck, tail, other secondary body piece, lock them in like that, sandwich them in. Okay, now I'm getting somewhere. Sandwich them in like that. Alternate weapons loadout, weirdly, on the Hellrunner. So you can either have that one, or you can have something else, as I recall. So let's get his main body then. Other way around. So that will fit Oops. Oh, blah, blah. Right. Note to self, don't try and do these things late at night because it's not a good idea for one's sanity. Let's try that again. Right, that in there. And that in there. Keep those together so the engine doesn't escape. Try and fit this on the right way around so it can't escape either. Right, that's better, I think. I hope. So that's supposed to have a gap there. I've still got that the wrong way around. Brilliant. Yes, no, yes. Right, so slot that on there, I think, that way round. Something's still very wrong about that to me somehow. I've probably got the tail on back to front or something at this point, but anyway. I feel like I've missed a... So I think that's the alternate weapon that can go on his back. I feel like I'm missing a top piece there. But I've got legs, arms. What have I missed? I've missed something. I've missed something somewhere, I feel. I think that I've got this... That can't be the right way around for his main body. I think the body must be able to go on the other way around as well, because that doesn't feel right somehow. That's too big a gap. So I think I'm wrong about which way around. Yeah, that looks more convincing, I think. Which means that goes on there like that. That's much more convincing, so now it's not such a huge gap on the top there. Okay, so then he has his Velociraptor-esque little claws on the front there. And actually I thought these would just hold on to themselves, but they don't. They actually need a little bit of stopperage from the a couple of the stoppers, which rather stupidly I haven't got out of the bag yet. I'm using most of my fingers to contain him, so let's just pop him down there for a moment. I wasn't intending for this to be quite such a big building session, but you never know how many pieces they're going to arrive in when they actually come. I've got this guy, you'll notice, is a silver android, because the mutated Red Zoids have silver androids to distinguish from the blue Zoids that have gold-coloured androids. So that's one of the main sort of distinguishing characteristics between the two. Yeah, I think that should fit like that. It felt quite loose when I slotted it on, but I think that's right. I always like these cockpits. These cockpits are infinitely cooler than the white ones, to my mind. They've got these little sort of grills, and they've got a little bit of red plastic just down the sides of them as well. They've got this sort of little smiley kind of mouth thing going on, which I always quite enjoyed with the Red Zoids. That's a very loose cockpit as well. Wow. So they just slot in there like that. He slots in there, and so he's completely dependent on kind of his interior screens, which in the comic and the annual there as well, they actually sort of paint as being the way in which he can actually sort of see out and navigate himself. And this is probably the point at which I realised that I've completely snookered myself by failing to attach his legs earlier, because I bet his legs are supposed to go on very, very much earlier, and I am completely right about that. So having put all of his upper body together like that, I now realise that his legs are supposed to go on first, because then the body clamps onto the legs and contains the top of the legs. So I won't go any further now because it'll just take too long and be deeply boring. But basically, the top of the legs are there. They'd be moved around in a sort of circular motion by the wind-up engine, and off he would go. That is working. So that's definitely operational. It's definitely operational. So I think that one would probably actually move as well when the time comes. But what I can do, of course, losing his stickers, that's not ideal. I can just slot his feet on there as well. So the Hellrunner I mean, it is good for display purposes because it stands up quite tall. So you know, it's got a good sort of shelf presence in that respect. I'm just trying to think. So that'll be that leg. Oh yes, that's right. So that's that. And then just another little stopper on the bottom there for his ankle. And then you've got a Hellrunner leg. So again, just very, very clever, and it just does that sort of circular motion there to move it along. But they must have had to think about these quite carefully to get these things like centre of gravity and so on right. Because they're not massively heavy things, obviously, so it may not be too much of a problem, but nonetheless, it still needs thinking about. And I think that originally, obviously, they must have moved. Otherwise, you know, kids would have been fairly upset about it because that's what they were sold as doing. So I can't quite get him on so he's operational, but you can see that this is I can prop his legs up into him where they're supposed to go, and you'll get sort of a rough idea of. Oops, it would help if they're the right way around, which I've completely misjudged. That's it. So, bits are dropping off him. Bless him. All right. Well, you get the idea. That's notionally what he would look like and stand like. So he's quite tall for a little Zoid, and that is roughly what a Hellrunner looks like. But obviously not like that because he would have been held in place. That's quite clever actually. He probably wouldn't normally be able to lean over like that when he's properly made, because the legs would be held in position too much to allow him to do that. But again, it's just a really, really clever, simple. He's probably no more than kind of a dozen parts, but the molds are really, really good, and you know you get the idea. They're supposed to be motorized dinosaurs and so on and so forth. So I'll have to spend a little bit more time with Redhorn at some point, I think, and try and fix him up, because I do have a mammoth as well. So I've got a mammoth, a Redhorn, and I've got a Zoidzilla. And really, I mean, I'm not planning on getting any more because I don't have the space for any of the really, really big ones, you know. But I had ones like, I had Great Gorgon, who's a sort of Stegosaurus type. He was cool. But I'm quite happy with that as a, you know, I got sort of 4 Zoids in this sort of one lot from eBay. And the Spiderzoid in particular is a standout for me. Simply because of the comics, but the Hellrunner was in the comics a lot. We don't think we saw the Power Zoids quite so much. There was a Serpent Zoid, I think it's called a Serpent Zoid. There was another Power Zoid on the red side, and that was quite important as well in a sense. But you know, it was a clever way of augmenting the toy line to have them do the comics as they did. Maybe that's just an alternate weapon, of course. I am forgetting something like the Hellrunner, that there are alternate weapons that they can have. But I'm quite happy with that as a little pickup, and I love the fact that the Power Zoid worked. I'm happy about that, and I'm glad I was able to show you the Power Zoid actually going. But that's a nice, you know, they were well packaged, and they've obviously been bagged in the right sort of ways. You can tell what belongs to who. You can imagine the nightmare that happens when these arrive and someone hasn't done that, because unless you've got a very keen eye and so you really know your Zoids well, trying to distinguish these parts from one another is a tough ask. That's a big ask. I don't even know if things like sort of, you know, Google's, what's it called? Google Lens. I don't even know if they'd be able to pick out the differences between them, because you know it's pretty obscure. But yeah, it's they were a lot of fun. They weren't pricey, but for me, they hit so many notes for me, you know, because they look really futuristic, and yet they also look like dinosaurs. I mean, it's a great shout, great design, great line, and you know, still going today. So You can't say fairer than that really in terms of longevity for a little plastic wind-up construction toy. I mean, I suppose that's the other hilarious juxtaposition of it as well, isn't it? That, you know, they're supposed to be these sort of futuristic combat vehicles, and they're wind-up. And I think that in and of itself just endears them to me, is that they went completely old school in terms of how they're powered, and it works. You know, it still works even now. I know the Spiderzoid isn't like whizzing along, but he does try and move. So you can see what the idea was. You can see that it would have worked at the time. I mean, it'd be fascinating to know what they could do with sort of, you know, little sort of cell batteries and stuff. But I think back in these times, cell batteries probably, were they being used to power toys back then? I doubt it. I think it was still restricted to watches, really. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, if you've got some more modern Zoids in this, then obviously let me know your thoughts on that. But I imagine that the vast majority of them now are battery powered, of course. That's somewhat inevitable. But I just think they were really, really clever toys back in their day. I mean, I don't know that there are any other toys they would have scaled with worth a damn, of course, because they are rather unique like that. But you know, I'll be interested to hear in the comments what you thought of Zoids. So that's it for this one, and hopefully I will see you before long when I am back from New York. Cheers.